Hey everybody, before we start this episode of RJ Talks, we just wanted to give a quick update. Last week's episode was not uploaded only because the file itself just didn't save. So this episode is officially episode 5. Secondly, we want to pay our dearest respects to Dwayne Haskins as well as his family. It is a tragic loss for not just the Pittsburgh Steelers, but for the entirety of the NFL.
And also his former Ohio State teammates as well. We saw throughout the weekend that it was a crushing blow for anyone who'd known him. So really pay respects.
24 going on 25 years old. That should not happen.
May he rest in peace. The guy was almost our age, dude. He had his whole life ahead of him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to take our time to do that. So without further ado, we wanted to give our official intro for this episode. We're going to be talking about Bobby Wagner being traded from or being picked up by the Los Angeles Rams after the Seattle Seahawks released him. DeVante Parker being traded from the Miami Dolphins to my New England Patriots.
And then we're also going to talk about the top 2 defensive line draft prospects between Aidan Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeaux, and which one team should pick first.
Yeah. All right. And with that being said, I'm Jose.
I'm Ricardo.
And welcome back to RJ Talks, everybody. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Coming back to another future Hall of Famer. Last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, was our Way Back Wednesday, and we talked about plenty of Hall of Famers and current and future Hall of Famers. So this week we're going to be talking about another future Hall of Famer in Bobby Wagner. What do you have to say about him, Ricardo? How do you think the LA Rams are going to fit him in?
I honestly think this is probably the best pickup they've made the whole offseason for several reasons. Not just because of the name of Bobby Wagner, but what he can bring to their team. Now, let's take a quick step back for the Los Angeles Rams and look at their strengths and weaknesses. We can all definitively say their strengths lie on the defensive line. Like, they're all set there.
Yep.
They don't need much more.
And Aaron Donald leading the charge.
Leonard Floyd, all these other guys. Von Miller's gone, but they still have plenty of guys to make up some key pass rushes there.
Now, we have Von Miller leaving that team, or not just leaving that team, but also being traded over to the Buffalo Bills. That leaves a hole in the linebacker position. Do you think that Bobby Wagner is an appropriate person to fill that hole?
It is not the exact same position, Jose. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Most people will not know outside linebacker and inside linebacker. They are definitely worlds apart. Okay. When it comes to playing those specific positions, but they made the right choice out of the two compared to paying Von Miller or getting a captain of the defense in Bobby Wagner. Now, let me explain really quickly as far as what he can bring to that defense specifically. So pretty much his whole career he spent behind a 4-3 defense. I'll explain it again to people who don't know. It's 4 down linemen and then 3 linebackers set up in between the gaps of those 4 down linemen.
Right.
Now Bobby Wagner, he is in charge of the middle of that defense, and he's in charge of setting up that defense. Now,
so he's the supervisor of the team.
Yes.
So he's basically sent out there, and he's the one that's running the show. He's making sure that everybody is in place.
Exactly. You have your branch managers, which in this case would be like the D coordinator, and then the senior managers, which would be the safety, and then you have the supervisor, which is the middle linebacker.
Yeah,
making sure that everything works perfectly.
Right. They're the ones that are running the business. They're running the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So why this is such a huge pickup for the Los Angeles Rams is because if you could pick one weakness out of their defense, it was that linebacker position, because you had Jalen Ramsey and those secondary players who held their own when it came to pass coverage.
Yeah.
But when it came to run support and coverage over the middle, the weakness was in the linebackers, and too often times they had to bring an extra safety down to help in coverage against specific teams. But luckily they had Aaron Donald who could cover up that weakness.
Right.
But as Aaron Donald gets older, he is going to need some help around him, and that's just a fact. Whenever players get older, they're going to need help to cover up the weaknesses that they've done for so many years.
And that's not to say that Aaron Donald isn't a future Hall of Famer. It's his league.
He could retire.
It's his league defensively.
He could retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. Right, like.
And now that he has a Super Bowl ring, that just sealed the deal.
Exactly. So. Yeah. My point being in this is that this is going to help the Rams go from a already great defense to a well-balanced defense, where on every level of their defense they have the chance to be elite. They just got to show and prove it on day in and day out.
They do.
So
they do.
Bobby Wagner, there's so much I could say about the guy, but let me just go back to his last season with Seattle. He had his most combined tackles in a season of 170 tackles.
Yep.
Almost 100 solo tackles at 93, and then 77 assisted tackles. I mean,
his assisted tackles went up, but that's not to say that he got any worse. It's just he needed more help. The guy's 30 years old at the center linebacker position.
Also, what you could attribute that to, Jose, is that he was around the ball more. So naturally, if you're around the ball more and like you help someone else who's in the middle of a tackle, you can get that assist.
That's right.
So it works both ways. It works both ways where they help you, but you could also be around where you help them.
Yeah, definitely.
So the fact that a linebacker going 10 years into his career has his most tackles ever in his career, like getting older, that just shows that the man is still definitely in his prime.
He is definitely an example of production, just like his teammate Russell Wilson. He's a model of consistency, and Bobby Wagner has only continued to get better throughout the years, especially at the ripe age of 30. Right? Yeah. He's still looking like he did in his 2014 and 2015 seasons. Well, actually, it's 15 and 16 because his numbers were just very, very high then. But now that he's getting older and he still has those combined tackles, the most combined tackles that he's ever had in his career, who knows what he'll do when he has the support that LA will offer him.
No, specifically, I mean, the man, he's had 6 All-Pro first-team seasons. That means that at those years he was the very best in his position. Yeah. Every year. For a while it was a rivalry between him and Luke Kuechly as far as who would have been the best linebacker in the league. Yeah. But poor Luke Kuechly, because of health issues, he had to retire early. So now it's definitive that it is Bobby Wagner. And I'm curious to see who the next great linebacker is going to be for this next era of football, because as Bobby Wagner gets older, someone new's gonna have to take the reins, and until someone takes the reins, it is Bobby Wagner's position. And 10 years in the NFL, the man looks like he's slowing down just a little bit, maybe a little quickness off the first step, but his technique is still off the charts when it comes to tackling and being at the right place at the right time where the defense needs him.
And we already talked about this just before recording this episode. Your athleticism will only get you so far in this league. Yes, it's a great thing to have, and it'll definitely help you in the long run. But if that's all you're relying on, and you're going up against these offensive linemen, these tackles that just have all of the technique and all of the strength and speed that you can imagine, it's no contest, really. So a lot of these college kids that are going to be coming in need to be prepared for those kinds of things. And Bobby Wagner is no exception to that.
No, absolutely. And what's going to be great is that it's been, I don't know, Jose, would you say around 5 years since he's had a relevant team around him to where they can win? They have a chance to win.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, ever since they lost Super Bowl 49 to the Patriots.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where he can only do so much for a team without the proper support around him, like to lead to wins. Like there's only so much he can do as an individual person. I think some people have forgotten about Bobby Wagner, unless you're an NFC West fan like myself included. You know who he is, and you know just how great of a player he is. And I think because he got to the Rams, he's going to get a chance to show that again on the national level with those national games that the Rams get. People are gonna be like, "Oh man, Bobby Wagner, he's still pretty good." Like,
unfortunately, in your conference and let alone your division. So I mean, it's gonna be be tough.
I've come to terms with that specifically. Like, what's gonna happen? It's just I wish I had a competent GM that would say like, "Yeah, you're a Hall of Famer. Don't you want revenge on your team? Like, what do you want specifically for money? I gotta have you. I need you as the captain of my defense, my leader." No, we'll just draft another outside linebacker who's athletic, and we'll see. We'll see how that's looking. But the Rams are going to be set up to. It's hard to repeat in this league, but they're definitely going to be set up to definitely make the playoffs, at least to give themselves a chance.
Oh, there's no doubt with how the NFC is looking. The NFC is just a total toss-up. But as we've seen historically, the NFL, these teams all of a sudden just come out of nowhere.
Exactly.
Like people that we just never expected to perform, teams that we never expected to get as far as they do, they just come out and surprise us. So Are the LA Rams going to be that kind of team? Probably not, since they are the reigning Super Bowl champs, and it is harder to come back out of being a Super Bowl champ. I mean, look at the Atlanta Falcons since they lost 51. Look at the Seahawks since they lost 49. And it's difficult. I mean, even the Patriots, when they were on a stint of winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl, they went 10 years without even winning one.
No, it's definitely it's a hard thing to do, and that's why unlike basketball, it's hard for a team to go back to back, because it's just injuries catch up to you. You got a more strength of schedule that teams get, and teams focus entirely on you, because like, okay, you're the champs. We want to measure up to how you are with the champs.
Yep.
And there's an expression, dude, that comes with heavy is the head that has the crown.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yeah, that wears the crown. That definitely is another thing that goes along with it, because you just won and you feel like, all right, like we just don't have to focus as much until we get into the playoffs. And look at Tampa Bay last year. They were the defending champs. They had a chance, and they came back like, all right, well, all we need to do is hold them off and we'll win this game. And LA, like how they should, they took the opportunity. They got the chance to get a game winner.
To be fair, too, LA stacked that team. They spent so much money and so much draft capital to get that kind of team.
Oh, it would have been a disaster had they not won.
Oh man.
The amount of ridicule they would have received.
Yeah, and the amount of risk alone that they put into that winning season was astronomical. So the fact that they went up against Tampa Bay and they did win, especially the kind of season that Tampa Bay had last year with all of their injuries and all the trouble that they had to go through, it's no surprise to me to see that the LA Rams did beat them, and then they eventually went to the Super Bowl and won. I mean, at that point, it's like, okay, you put all of this work in, you put all of this risk down, and it paid off for you.
Even then, it was a close game too. To the Cincinnati, who they were supposed to blow out, and
exactly,
they were on their way to do that. And Cincinnati came back and actually made a great game for them. So that just goes to show that it's hard to win in this league, and especially hard to repeat. And that's why we call the dynasties what they are, dynasties, because it's so hard to repeat in the game of football compared to other sports.
Unlike baseball is almost entirely mental. And there's
no salary cap either.
There isn't no. But the thing about baseball is it is very interesting to me in the sense that it's very mentally challenging. You know, you have to think about, you have so much downtime, and it challenges you to be focused. Football is very, very physical, of course. And it is purely a team sport. It is not an individually driven sport. You can do that with basketball. You can say that about baseball. You have players that just perform like all-stars, and they lead their teams to championships. Football is purely team-oriented. You can have a superstar player in Bosa, for example, in the LA Chargers. He had no support whatsoever, but he was the top defender. But there's no way that he by himself, or even a great quarterback by themselves, could lead their team to the championship.
Yeah, and to tie this back in with Bobby Wagner, he was in that situation as well with Seattle. It's just an awful team right now, dude. Like I have no idea what's going on, specifically. But with the Rams, he'll have a chance to go on a winning team, and I feel like that'll be refreshing for him. That'll rejuvenate his spirits more. Yeah. Knowing like, wow, I can actually make a mistake, and it's not the end of the world because we have a competent offense that can score for us, and I got guys around me that know what they're doing.
That's right.
Oh, Aaron Donald's taking these blockers off of me because they're looking at him more, so I have a free line to tackle the running back. Oh, a blitz is coming. Oh, I'm wide open because no one's paying attention towards me.
Right.
Coverage, everything. It's just, it makes such a difference when a great player goes to a winning team, and we're seeing a trend of that more often these past years, Jose. Now, I won't say Tom Brady because of the Patriots, but Matthew Stafford with the Rams. Like, he's another example of a player that was on a losing situation year in and year out. He tried to do his best.
Detroit of all teams, man. He did everything he possibly could.
Exactly, and he goes to the Rams, and he's just rejuvenated. Now, he wasn't perfect because nobody is. Like, it was his first year, but
right.
Hey, Mike, they won the Super Bowl. There's a new lease on life that they have, and it might be a pattern for some players that are coming up on contract to go to a winning team.
And that's a perfect example. That is a perfect example that you just brought to the previous point of football being completely team oriented. You have you have a very, very good, if not very close to great quarterback in Matthew Stafford, and then he's with the Detroit Lions for the majority of his career. Did they ever once even go to a playoff game?
They made it to. They never once won one, but they made it to a playoff game. They lost to the Cowboys. I believe it was in 2012, 2000. No, it was 2014. It was Romo's last year. It was Romo's last year as the starter for the Cowboys.
Okay, so that they made it to one playoff game.
Yeah, and they lost.
And you have a great quarterback at the helm who is supposed to be the leader of the team.
Yeah.
You trade him over to the LA Rams and they win the Super Bowl. But that was really only because you had Odell Beckham as a wide receiver. You had Cooper Kupp as an everything player.
Yeah.
I mean, as a Swiss Army knife for that team.
You had Jalen Ramsey at the secondary with Jake Johnson at the safeties.
You had Aaron Donald. You had Von Miller. That team was completely stacked, and of course, at that point, it's like, of course they're going to make it to the. Of course they're going to make it to the playoffs. Of course they're going to make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But the point still stands. Matthew Stafford cannot carry a team on his back the entire time. Tom Brady is supposed to be the greatest quarterback of all time, but they didn't win a Super Bowl in 10 years at all.
Yep.
And he had superstar players around him. He had Rob Gronkowski, he had Julian Edelman, and he had Dante Hightower at the defense, and several other players that could definitely take him there.
Yeah.
But the fact that they didn't win a Super Bowl in 10 years, let alone go to one, it's mind-boggling.
No,
it really is.
It just goes to show, like, to the average fan too, like, winning is hard. It's not supposed to be easy. So, like, you have these people that say, like, oh well, this is really what bothers me, Jose. Whenever a team wins a Super Bowl, the very first question after they win the Super Bowl, all right, can this team be a dynasty? I'm like, you can't expect that out of every team that just wins the Super Bowl. You just have to wait and see. Look at the Chiefs. Weren't they supposed to win 3 Super Bowls in a row after they beat the Niners?
Right.
Like they're struggling too. Like and they've won. They're better off than most teams in the NFL.
And they're going to be struggling even more now that Tyreek Hill has been traded to Miami.
That'll be a rude awakening for those fans and for Andy Reid.
It will be.
Because they're taking for granted of how much of a cheat code Tyreek Hill was for them. And that's so simple.
And that's not to say that Patrick Mahomes is not a good quarterback. He's a great quarterback.
Yeah.
But his mentality, his attention to detail as far as the play calling goes, is going to be challenged. You know, he can't rely on his physical stature anymore. He can't rely on his arm anymore. He can't rely on Tyreek Hill being open 10, 15 yards down. That's just not going to happen anymore. You don't have somebody like that in Juju Smith-Schuster. You just don't. He's a very good receiver, but he's a possession
receiver. And
he's an even better second receiver. Yeah.
But
the short game is going to be their friend.
No, it's gonna be their friend, and we could honestly have a whole topic of that too if we wanted to go into with the Chiefs. But back to Bobby Wagner.
We're straying off topic here.
It's just the man. There's not much more I could say. He's a Hall of Famer. Like he's gonna be inducted into the Hall of Fame when he retires. At the very least, like second ballot, I can see him probably being a first ballot Hall of Famer because the man is just the epitome of consistency for a team. Now, they didn't win that much, but like, I'll give you an example. Look at Ray Lewis. The Ravens didn't win that much sometimes in those years, but he was still hailed as the best linebacker in the league and the production that he did for that team by himself.
And Ray Lewis is a better linebacker than Bobby Wagner.
No, he definitely is. Yeah, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just say that at all to the people who are listening to me. I'm just saying that's a great example about Bobby Wagner of, hey, you won a Super Bowl early in your career, and you just playing, but you haven't had the best of luck winning, but you're still playing at an all-time level.
Right.
That leads you to be that great.
So putting him on a winning team was definitely the move.
Yeah, and I say Jose, he has at least 3 more years of prime Bobby Wagner years left in him.
Yes.
At the very most.
I
do believe, if I remember correctly, he had a 5-year contract. So I do believe those latter part of those 2 years, he might just become a rotational piece compared to how he is right now.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And that's only because he'll be getting older.
It's age, and it's playing that position. It's just the body can only take so much. But
it's tough.
Bobby Wagner, he'll be good. He'll be a great addition to the Rams, and that defense will be more balanced than it was last year. It's just a matter if everyone stays healthy. I mean, look at Tampa Bay. They had the pieces that the defense set up, but they got injured and didn't do much last season. So if the Rams stay healthy, and that's a big if, they'll have a top 5 defense for sure next year.
Definitely. Switching over to the offensive side, we're going to be talking about DeVante Parker in the next segment, going from Miami to my New England Patriots. Is that a return to form? Or not even a return to form, is it a consistent trade for the New England Patriots? We'll be right back.
Yes, we'll see you in the next segment.
All right, switching over to the offensive side of the ball, DeVante Parker being traded from the Miami Dolphins to the New England Patriots. Is this going to be a change of pace for DeVante Parker? I would say no, Ricardo, only because the East Coast version of play calling is not very first of all very different from the West Coast in the sense that the quarterback needs to be able to run. They need to have the legs in order to sustain a drive. But on the East Coast, those quarterbacks need to have a statue, or need to be a statue. Yeah. But particularly in the case of the quarterback position in Miami, comparing Tua to Mac Jones, Big Mac, Mac Dad, he is not going to be in a very different position. And I say this because Tua does not have a big arm. He cannot throw it downfield. So obviously the Miami Dolphins have been forced to be a part of the short game, right? They need to rely on the short game. And that's what the New England Patriots live by, right? Yeah. They love the short game. Their biggest focus is to get the first down so that way they can drive the ball down the field. Mac Jones can throw it down the field if he needs to, but that's not the primary focus of the New England Patriots offense. Okay, their offense is plenty of quick passes, a whole lot of play action passes. Also, they love to hand it off to Damian Harris in order to get the first down. So because of that, I'm making the case that it's not going to be very different for DeVante Parker. That's not to say that he is a transcendently great wide receiver. He's not, because in the past 2 to 3 years, his stats have fluctuated quite a bit. He's had catch percentages in 2019, 56.3%. 2020, it was 61.2%, and then it dropped drastically in 2021 to 54.8%.
He has been missing some games, too.
That's right.
That's part of the reason why Miami
got rid of him. Yeah. That's right, and I was going to bring that up, too, so that contributed to that quite a bit. His yards per game, it looks like yards per game, 51.5 in 2021. 2020 was 56.6, and then 2019 was 75.1. So again, he's not these putting out these huge numbers. He's never going to be our number one guy. Yeah. He's just not going to be. For us, we would need to draft a world-class wide receiver.
Exactly.
A world-class wide receiver in order to fit them into that style of play calling.
If you could pick one receiver that you guys could get, who would you want?
For me, I would love to have Chris Olave.
Great choice.
Yeah, I would love to see Olave on that team. However, we'll see if he's able to fit in that scheme. Yeah. But maybe you can add more onto that.
No, absolutely. So, as far as the pickup, I think it's a good pickup for Mac Jones. We got to stop. Okay, let me get something out of the way here. The kid can play. Okay, it's clear to me that the kid can play. Like he has no problem playing under pressure, commanding the team, commanding the offense with the play call. Yeah. So to all these people saying Mac Jones, like, oh, he can't throw, I'm like, he can throw it. It's just a different specific offensive style. Now I bring that up because compare the weapons that he has in New England right now before DeVante Parker, and let's see what they do this year compared to Alabama. Now, to anyone who doesn't know Mac Jones, how it was in Alabama, it was precise, methodical, and accurate efficient offense. they broke some of Joe Burrow's records with LSU as far as offensive stats because he would put his ball placement is impeccable, and that's part of the reason why he was a number one draft. Not number one. He was a first round drafted quarterback, is because he had great ball placement and he knows how to get it to his targets at the right spot so that they could get open and make plays with it.
And that showed this past year.
And he
definitely.
And the man can throw it deep. It's just I get the point of not trying to force it when you don't have the right talent around him. DeVante Parker, he's a good addition, but like you said, he's not a number one. He's a good addition for like if you have single coverage and you have to force it, or if you have him run crossing routes and stuff like that, something deep in play action to help Mac Jones out. It is a great addition for the New England Patriots offense.
Yeah.
Now, they're still going to run the pro style offense of running the ball, but it'll help Mac Jones get some more options. Like enough of this 12 personnel with double tight ends where they're running short passes, that teams are going to catch up with that.
They will.
If you don't force the ball down the field a little bit, teams are just going to jump on the sticks and then jump forward, and they're going to hurt Mac Jones' stats because like, okay, he's going to throw this short pass, so I'm just going to jump at this route where the receiver's going. Right. And that's pretty much how it happens with some quarterbacks who aren't allowed to develop, is that their stats take a dip after a great rookie season. Mm-hmm. But if you get them more help right out of the gate, like DeVante Parker, and they need a drafted receiver. You and I have had this conversation off mic so many times as far as I think you guys have a chance. You just need to get more skill position players. You got to get rid of the Nelson Aguilars, and I can't even remember most of the receivers. That's how bad they are, dude. So
right?
Like,
yeah, it's not a world class receiver corps.
Exactly.
Because they just they just can't perform. They just can't perform, and the fact that that forced New England and Mac Jones to rely more on their checkdowns than their main guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I saw that Buffalo Bills game in the playoffs. I saw. I'll be honest, I saw like a good, like towards halftime of it until it started getting blown out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Mac Jones, the blasts he was throwing, they were on target. Like they were there on target. Buffalo just made great plays. Mm-hmm. And what makes the difference between the defense getting those balls is having a good offensive player to at least either break up the pass or make the game-changing play for those deep passes. Right. So I believe if they're heading towards the right direction. If DeVante Parker is like your second or third option, you're in the right place. But if he's your number one option, you're going to get a lot of last year where it's just a bunch of short intermediate passes, double up DeVante Parker, force Nelson Aguilar to beat you if they keep him on the team, force other guys who are
we'll see about that.
Yeah, other guys who are unproven. So this will definitely help out everyone on the offense. And if they add Chris Olave, Jose, I wouldn't be too worried about fitting him into the style of the Patriot system, because with a pro style offense, you're going to need receivers to run routes. Right. And if he can get open deep, it'll open up the playbook a lot more.
Definitely. Just based off of his numbers alone, you see that he last year he had 65 receptions, he received 936 yards, he had 13 total TDs, and he averaged 14.4 yards. That in and of itself is a very, very solid play action receiver, even, because he can run those intermediate routes very well, but that's not to say that he can't run it deep.
Let me say also too, you know how competitive that Ohio State receiving room is. So he could have had more stats if he was with another team, is what I'm saying. So that's him sharing the ball with other players.
Exactly.
If he becomes the primary focus for the Patriots, I'm not saying it's going to be the same numbers. It's going to be good to watch, because Mac Jones needs his guy where those receivers that have that, and that quarterback that have the connection, like two peas in a pod. Right. You need that, and then if you got that, everything else can follow. Mm-hmm. And you already have a solid running game with Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, where they're bulls who can run straight up the middle, no problem handing the ball off to them. And this goes back to our key philosophy, Jose: balance. So the New England Patriots are too far on the spectrum of running the ball. Mm-hmm. They need to get back more on the spectrum of passing the ball, and that starts off with getting great players who can get open.
Exactly. Yeah, and I do truly believe that Chris Olave will be a fantastic addition to that team if they decide to draft him. The New England Patriots are around are midway through the first round.
It's a possibility,
so
because
they definitely could.
They love the kid Drake London out of USC, and there's still some other receiving options. So it might be, dude. It just depends on our players. It's not out of the question, is what I'm saying.
It definitely isn't a quarterback draft class for this year. The wide receiver draft class looks pretty good, and it looks very hopeful. So even if we don't get Chris Olave, we do have other options that we can pick up, and that'll fit into that pro style scheme pretty well. On top of that too, as we're going to be getting, our next segment's going to be about another group of prospects, but I feel confident that the New England Patriots as an organization are going to pick a solid wide receiver.
The only thing that concerns me, man, and we've talked about it before in the episode that I didn't save, is that I don't like the fact that Belichick hasn't gotten an offensive coordinator on that side of the ball.
That's trouble too.
Because as great as Belichick is, he's not an offensive guy.
He's a defensive-minded coach.
If it was the other way around, where it was just Belichick running, duct taping things and having just assistant coaches help him out, I'd be like, yeah, of course, it's Belichick. He's made his bones on defense. That's who he is. But the fact that it's on offense, I don't trust it too much, because it's very pedestrian offense from what I saw last season, and that's okay with the rookie. You want to keep it simple, but you can't have that going forward, especially with the monster of the AFC, because those defenses are just going to laugh and be like, oh, okay, so it's just short game. All right, so we're going to blitz here, have our corners jam your receivers, and good luck, Mac. Let's see how you do. Let's pick the quarterback off and jump those routes. So
especially now that we have that LA Chargers defense now, that updated LA Chargers defense with Khalil Mack and Bosa, that's going to be
the Denver defense is going to be a lot better, because they'll have a competent offense to help them out and get off the field.
Yes.
And
and that'll only boost their stamina. They'll be able to last the entire game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Buffalo is no slouch either. They, as we talked about in the previous episode,
man. They creamed us last year.
And they added Von Miller to have a presence pass rush to them. Their secondary's always been good. It's elite with Tre'Davious White and Jordan Poyer. So going back to what I'm saying, is that's in your own division too. So
it is.
Yeah. So you're gonna need more balance. You can't just run the same old thing and expect it to work. It may have worked in the 2000s early on, have great defense, just play the run game, but it's a different league. And with those more skilled defenders, you just can't get away with that anymore. And this is a great first step, is what I want to go referring back to Patriots. A good first step. You're going to need a lot more to go.
Yes.
And then that way you have a great offense to build around and help the kid out, dude. I'm sick and tired of having to see him anticipate throws and having to throw these 5-yard passes, because I saw him play against Justin Fields in the national championship. Now, granted, he had DeVante Smith. People are like, oh, well, he has all these weapons. I'm like, you still need to get the ball to those weapons. You still need to sit in the pocket, pass him through, and the kid can throw it deep.
Dude, and he put on a clinic in that national championship on just accuracy and effectiveness, getting down.
Yeah, and I'm just like, no, no, he's not Aaron Rodgers or Justin Herbert or Mahomes. He doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, but you don't need that. You just need to get the ball and those specific time placements, and he can throw it. People are saying he can't throw it 30 yards down the field. I'm like, he can throw it 40 yards easy.
He could.
It's not a problem.
Especially now that he has youth on his side.
Exactly.
It's going to be he's going to be going into his second year as a starting quarterback in the NFL for the New England Patriots, no less. So it's going to be very interesting to see what DeVante Parker can offer this team. As you said, it's a good first step, and I definitely agree with that. We just need to continue building that offense, and we have to, as soon as possible, get an offensive coordinator. From what I understand, it's already too late for that for this coming season.
Yes.
But in the seasons to come, we definitely do need that. But either way, we'll see how the offense continues to develop.
Another thing that's great about Parker is that he has some size, whereas New England has been notoriously known for having guys who are 5'10", under 6 feet,
6'3", 220. Yeah, that's DeVante.
That's gonna help out Mac Jones a lot, especially if he just wants to throw a 50-50 ball. Most of DeVante Parker's highlights I've seen, he can make spectacular catches along the sideline.
Absolutely.
Now that'll help every once in a while, but it's not going to be a consistent source of production that you can expect. But that'll definitely help out a lot. And hey, who doesn't like a tall guy to just chuck it up to? You don't have to be as accurate with it. You just have to give him a chance in that wingspan, and
look at Matt Stafford with Megatron back in the day.
Oh no, yeah. You have a corner who's like 5'11", 6 feet, and you have a guy who's 6'3", 6'4". Yeah. Just give him a chance, and it'll definitely help out a lot.
It's like holding a candy right above a kid's head and him trying to jump up and catch it.
No, exactly.
Yeah, him trying to jump up and reach it. There's no chance.
No, height is a great chance for them, especially at the receiver position.
The receiver position and the cornerback position specifically. So
it's a great addition, but it's just. I just can't get over that coaching aspect of it, because that makes all the difference.
It's hard, man. Yeah.
Because I'm surprised he didn't have a backup plan, because almost every year McDaniels has been interviewing for head coaching jobs ever since Brady left. Like, it's just happened. Like, that's the one thing that kills me about this Patriots offseason, is that part of it. But hey, it's Belichick. Maybe he has something up his sleeve that we haven't seen yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he did something. But we're definitely going to look into the draft as far as the receivers that get picked and what New England decides to do in that first round, because it's specifically that first round where the cream of the crop is going to go like that. So they're going to have to make.
That's always how it is. Yeah, every single year. With the draft coming up in the next 2 weeks, we're definitely going to be talking about more wide receivers and just on every front.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about all the prospects going forward, and that's definitely what we're going to start doing in our next segment with Aidan Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeaux, the top two prospects in the edge rusher category. Yeah,
absolutely. So we'll be back with the next and final segment. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the final segment of RJ Talks. This segment is going to be a little bit longer compared to the other two, because there's definitely a lot to talk about. So we're going to talk about the top two edge rusher draft prospects for this year's draft, which is Aidan Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeaux. So we're going to go ahead and take it right off the back. Now, Jose, we talked about these guys for quite a bit. Sometimes, specifically Hutchinson. My opinion, there shouldn't be a question as far as who the number one draft pick should be, specifically for the Jaguars, who need to build that team properly.
Oh man, yeah.
So I think Aidan Hutchinson is the guy to pick from Michigan. Now, specifically why I'm gonna tell people. Now, he's not explosive off the jump. He doesn't pop off your screen. But when I tell you that guy has the best technique of any defensive lineman in this year's draft, it shows on every specific play, specifically when it comes to moves off the line. The one weakness that he has is trying to bend the edge and go outside the corner. To people who don't know, is that when you're a D-line defensive end on the edge, you go against a big left tackle or right tackle, depending on which side they put you on. Bending the edge is sort of going around the outside of that tackle and getting to the quarterback. That's one of the hardest things to do, because naturally, if you see someone's trying to go outside, you just push him up the field, as opposed to letting him circle in. That's something that he would definitely have to work on. But the good news is that he has a relentless motor to try to cut back in and go after that quarterback.
And I made this comparison before the show even started. Mm-hmm. He looks a lot like TJ Watt in the sense that his motor doesn't stop and he has a fantastic technique. The only thing that is missing for me to completely say that he is a lot like that he is almost exactly like TJ Watt is his explosiveness off the line. TJ Watt has that explosiveness, and he's also shifty as hell, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that he has that technique to get around tackles and get straight to the quarterback, that's what Aidan Hutchinson is missing. But it's so much easier to develop a player that has the skill but needs the strength and needs the explosiveness with just a few gym trips, right? He can definitely do it just with that. Kayvon Thibodeaux, on the other hand, he has all the athleticism, but he does not have a whole lot of the technique. We've seen moments where he shows that, but he relies mostly on his athleticism. That's most of his highlights. If anybody gets the chance to watch it, that's definitely what you'll see.
And the reason we're bringing up these two guys specifically is because they're ranked number 1 and 2 for the defensive line prospects, depending on the GM that you ask.
Right.
And they both play the same position, which is defensive end, which is in a 4-3 defense. So they both play that same system of 4-3. 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers in the back. So Thibodeaux, I will give him this. He definitely jumps off your screen, but it's just he needs more time to develop, whether that's another year at Oregon. But I do see that he might have a little bit of some injury issues. So maybe that's why he's trying to take the opportunity for his draft capital and go to the league now. But it's going to be a lot harder once he gets to the league to develop all those. Now, he'll get the benefit of the doubt of being a high first-round draft pick to develop him.
Yeah.
But it's not going to look good for a team if they have the chance. I'll give you an example. If the Jaguars draft Kayvon Thibodeaux over Hutchinson, they're going to look back at them like, hey, you had Hutchinson there. Hutchinson, he's going to make some plays coming off the league.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying he's going to be J.J. Watt or anybody like that. Like, he's not explosive for that. For me, the best pro comparison I can give him to is a guy from the Bengals. I don't know if you remember him. He was 91. Yeah, his last name is Henderson. He has one of the more elusive and slow pass rushers in the league. What that means is that he doesn't explode off there, but he gets there specifically on the team. Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson, he has this great technique. He doesn't have a lot of quickness, but he has a good pass rush that you can go on there. So for me, he's a more athletic Trey Hendrickson because they both rely specifically on technique alone to get towards that pass rush. And you definitely need that with the monsters and athletes that you're going to go against the NFL, because Thibodeaux, you have the athleticism now, but you're not going to be able to bull rush or outstep everybody. You're going to go against those elite talent who has the athleticism just like you, but they can school you because they have better technique.
Exactly.
Whether you have the Trent Williams of the world, you have some other left tackles I can't think off the top of my head, but those left tackles, the elite ones, you're not going to get away with that. Maybe with the right tackles, but give them some credit, like Tristan Wirfs. Like, he holds his own. Like, you have those right tackles as well. You're going to need a lot more than just speed and some strength to get through.
For sure, yeah. And what's very impressive to see from somebody like Aidan Hutchinson is, well, actually, just on another segue.
Yeah.
I will be fair to Kayvon Thibodeaux. He is a sophomore in high school. Wow, sophomore in college.
Yeah.
So he hasn't had as much time to develop as Aidan Hutchinson. Aidan Hutchinson is now a senior going into the NFL, and that definitely shows. You can see the experience that he's had, and you can see the maturity that he shows on the field with every single play against elite talent, against the Ohio States, against all the other top caliber universities that he has played against. So against those college teams that have all of the talent in the world, and he's still able to perform and put up those numbers, that speaks in and of itself. I mean, he's played against Georgia. He's played against Georgia. He's played against Penn State. He's played against Ohio State. All of those guys have all of the talent possible, but yet he still finds a way to put those QBs into the turf.
And Iowa too. He didn't have his compared to Ohio State and Penn State. They're not the most statistically pleasing games, but Iowa, they're known for two things: breeding tight ends that can block and breeding linemen. So he against the Big Ten, where Iowa, who's known for having great linemen, and he's just schooling them off the block and getting through blocks between them. That just goes to show you, against the elite competition in the nation, that he's able to get through and make an impact. Now, yes, they got destroyed by Georgia, but I didn't see it as a fault on him. It's just a fault as a team. So I'll give you an example. Aidan Hutchinson was a five-star guy. They had like 2 on their team. Georgia had like 10 and 11. So when you have that much talent that you go against, it's only a matter of time before the cracks of your team show compared to talent. That's just the way it went. And I didn't see him as like having an off game. Definitely, it wasn't his best game, but from what I see, he can play. He can play against those guys, and he'll be able to show.
Teams in the NFL as well as college, are a set of dominoes. Okay, if one falls, the rest of them do. Yeah, and that's
absolutely.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
Yeah, and in the case of Kayvon Thibodeaux, he could be so much better if he would have taken the time to develop in college. Okay, that's not to say that he is not a bad linebacker, or excuse me. Well, yeah, technically he is a linebacker, but he's more of an edge rusher. So as an edge rusher, that's not to say that he's a bad one. He definitely is not. That's why his eyes. That's why the analyst's eyes and the scouter's eyes are on him. Matter of fact, in the news, if anybody has been watching the news, they have been talking about Kayvon Thibodeaux being over Aidan Hutchinson for weeks.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, and the fact that he is under that microscope, that doesn't mean that he's a pushover. He definitely is not a pushover. He is just not, in our opinion, he's just not as good as Aidan Hutchinson. He is more explosive and he is more athletic than Aidan Hutchinson, but Hutchinson can make the plays against those big teams because he has the skill and the technique. His athleticism will follow as soon as he starts hitting the gym when he gets to the NFL.
And the thing with Thibodeaux too, I would say if he waited another year and he developed more technique, for sure he's going to be the first overall pick in next year's draft with that talent. So I feel like it's better for him to stay back and try to develop a little more, because yes, you're going to get drafted and yes, you're going to get the amount of money, but once that starts, once training camp and those practices start, nobody cares where you get drafted. It's just a matter of what you can do man on man, talent against talent, technique versus technique. And if you I've seen it happen time and time again, Jose, where these first round prospects are like, yeah, no, like he doesn't have the right technique around it, but we'll coach him up. We'll coach him up once he gets there. He just has that speed and whatnot and the talent, and it doesn't matter. It sometimes just doesn't matter. It's just a matter of getting it done, and that's what we mean between these two prospects. You have one where it's talent and potential, and you have one that's production and skill.
It's so hard to teach that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
It's so hard to teach that technique and that skill that you need to take the time to gain in college. So like his position calls for, he is also, not only does he rush on the field, he's also rushing himself into the NFL. That's what I think.
No, and the thing about Hutchinson too is that he's a great run stopper as well, and that's an underrated aspect in my opinion. As someone who's played the position in high school, you have to try to be your best at both, because if you're just a pass rusher, you're just opening gashes to get him behind you. It's like if you just focus on getting upfield. No, you have to read the block, read the play, and then make a move immediately, which is that position. It's one I've said it before, one of my D-line coaches said my senior year, it's so easy that it's hard, because it's so easy. Like, all you have to do is just focus on this. It's hard because you're just like, okay, what's this? What's going to happen?
Exactly. You start to abstract beyond that.
Yeah, it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's true. It's so easy that it's hard, so you just have to focus on what's coming and what to attack it with.
Exactly.
Now, he's a great pass rusher and a run stopper as well, so that's why I want the Jaguars to get him, because they have the Josh Allen on the other side.
Aidan Hutchinson, yeah, you want them to get Aidan Hutchinson.
If they get Aidan Hutchinson right there, they'll be a great duo, because you have speed and then you have technique with some speed and power on the other.
Absolutely.
And that'll definitely help Jacksonville develop their team more. Mm-hmm. If they get Thibodeaux, it's more of a project for me, because I don't see him blowing up the league like how he shows in those highlights with Oregon, because they're professionals, dude. Like, they're not gonna let some scrub like, that's all you're gonna do. You're just gonna run outside. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna follow you towards the edge and run you upfield.
On top of that, too, he's playing in the Pac-12. That's not to say that the Pac-12 is terrible. They just aren't as good as the Big Ten or the SEC. Yeah, they don't have that elite talent, those elite teams. So naturally, those teams that he's playing against, like Utah State, Oregon State, Washington State, and Washington, it's no comparison. It's no comparison to the teams like Penn State, Ohio State. It just isn't, or Georgia, for that matter.
No, for sure. Like, it's going against the elite competition and seeing what you can do. And I'm telling you, man, if I hear another GM said, like, oh yeah, Hutchinson's got the stuff, but Thibodeaux, he's got the potential to be the next Chase Young or something, I'm just like, then let him do it.
Right.
Let me see it.
Yeah, right.
I want to see what he does. And from what I see a guy who's fast, got strength, but but doesn't know how to use it just yet. Like, he needs some time to develop that.
He's immature. Yeah, he's young. He's young.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. That's the biggest thing. Had he taken, and like we already said, had he taken the time to develop in college, he would have been fantastic. But moving on to the combine, this is a big thing that I wanted to bring up because everybody
go for it, man, please.
Yeah, because everybody loves to talk about the combine and they love to focus on the players in the combine and how they perform, particularly the 40-yard dash. That's great and all, but as Shannon Sharp says, the NFL combine is meant to confirm what I see on the field, and I completely agree with that. In the NFL combine, everybody loves to mention, that everybody loves to put on them, that everybody loves to focus on. The combine is a showcase. It is a showcase of each and every player and the way and their game. Okay, as far as just their individual stats go. All right, the 40-yard dash is not going to matter when you have the pads on and you're going up against these elite left and right tackles and offensive linemen. It's not going to matter. Okay, yes, you can be fast and you can be explosive off the line, but how are you going to do against these guys that have the technique that they've taken the time to develop in college and only brought and improved in the NFL?
No, absolutely.
It is, and the combine itself, yes, it's a great thing to watch, but it doesn't always translate. It almost never translates to the NFL. I mean, look at Tom Brady when he first got drafted. In the combine, he ran a 5.28 40-yard dash, one of the slowest quarterbacks ever. Not just in the combine in his draft class, one of the slowest quarterbacks ever. Yep. And look at him now. So and Peyton Manning ran a 4.8. And yes, he is a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he's not as good as Tom Brady. Because Tom Brady has the technique, Tom Brady has the skill, and that's not to say that Peyton Manning doesn't have the skill or the technique. He's just not as good as Tom Brady.
No,
on that front.
That's you hit the nail right on the head, dude. Like, we get these combine warriors that sneak up and get drafted a little more. Good news is that some teams are starting to take notice, because I don't know if you know, dude, but the reason some players perform so much better on the combine compared to on the field is that there's world coaches and trainers that teach them how to run the best 40-yard dashes possible.
So they'll look good.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they'll look good on paper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we saw Thibodeaux's 40-yard dash. It was a 4.65. Hutchinson's nothing to write home about, 4.74.
Which is slow for an edge rusher or just a linebacker. Yeah, that's slow.
It shows slow, but what I see is game speed and what happens in the middle of the game.
Right.
Now, this is an extreme example, but I'm gonna bring it up because it shows not everything's all that's meant to be on the combine. Stay with me, okay? Because you're gonna be like, what? Why are you bringing this up? This is completely different, but it brings up to the point Jose's talking about the combine. Jerry Rice. His combine 40-yard time was a 4.7 something as a receiver. 4.7.
That's slow.
Yeah, that is slow as a receiver. But the great Bill Walsh, he saw the film and he saw him in the game in pads outrun everybody. He's like, okay, this one doesn't compare to the other. And he trusted his eyes and he saw what was on the game field, and he beat the Cowboys in that draft, and he was able to get the spot before them to draft Jerry Rice. And just look at how quick he looks on the field. He doesn't look like a 4.7. The man looks like a 4.3, 4.2. So game speed compared to straight line running aren't the same. You just look at what the eye in the sky tells you about film. The eye in the sky tells me Thibodeaux has a great first step, but he doesn't have the technique to go along with it. Hutchinson has the talent, and he has the motor to go along with it if he struggles. So, and that should be for any player in the combine, whether it's a receiver or a running back. You have these guys that run, they run a 4.3. Oh, that's amazing and whatnot. What they do in college, well, the numbers are a little bit if he's fast, then why isn't he getting production and stats?
Right.
So it's just. Yeah, I agree with you. That's one of my biggest gripe too about the combine. When I was first starting as a fan, I would watch it all the time. Like, oh, cool. So there's this guy, and they do this, this, and this. But then when I took some time, I'm like, okay, look at their stats and see how they play. I'm like, okay, they're all right. They don't seem like the greatest thing since sliced bread compared to how they're trying to make them.
And that kind of wisdom came with experience. You had time to actually watch the game. You had time to learn the game. And
exactly.
I mean, admittedly, every football fan, or arguably every sports fan, when they're starting out with their specific favorite sport, they love to watch the thing that's easiest to see, right? The thing that's easiest to see. So in our case, it would be the 40-yard dash, right? In football, in the combine. Once we're watching the 40-yard dash in the combine, or even a quarterback with a huge arm that can just shoot it down the field, and it's like, no, we love to see that stuff. But how are they going to perform against? And now that we've actually had experience, how are they going to perform against those top tier teams? How are they going to perform in the playoffs when the lights and the pressure and the focus are all entirely on them?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, it's just there's a different thing to it, man. It's just, you just see how, like, with any position, like, I feel like I'm repeating myself every time I say this, but like elite competition, how you perform against them. Do you match up? Do you dominate? Or do you not match up at all? Do you like shrink a little when you go against that elite competition in those high pressure moments? So it's just a matter of how their seasons go, and to the average person this may sound like a lot of work, but the main thing is trust what your eyes tell you when you watch the game. Don't trust what's shown on when they're wearing shorts and they're doing exercise drills. That doesn't always translate into the NFL.
The good thing about football is it's a very easily observable sport. I mean, what you see is what you get. Yes, there is strategy, and yes, there is, competent play calling that has to go into the game itself. But what you see is probably what's happening as a fan, as an audience member. Next time anybody, whether you're a football fan or not, watch a football game. And basically what you're seeing is what is happening. If you make a comment about it, there will be a fan next to you, or hopefully a competent fan next to you. Not a bandwagon fan, or not this eccentric fan, Dallas Cowboys fans. Yeah, not eccentric fans. We love you guys. We love football, but sometimes you guys get a little out of hand. But anyway.
No. I'm having no problem calling them out, Jose. You toxic fans, you are what's wrong with football, and I hope you shut up to those people who aren't delusional. I love you guys.
Yeah. Anyway, going back to the point. Yeah. Hopefully you have a good football fan next to you to say, hey, yeah, that is actually what's happening. Good eye. Yeah. If you're able to just impartially observe the game and see it as it is, please do so. Okay, and please make comments and say, oh, I noticed this receiver is really fast, or he's able to get open. So of course the quarterback is going to be able to make the play on them. And it's like, oh yeah, great. Yeah, just watch a football game and keep in mind the fact that what you're seeing is what you're getting. So if you see a defender that is really able to shift through the offensive line and get to the quarterback, and do that over and over and over again, it's probably because they're good. It's probably because they have the right technique, or they have the athleticism with the technique in order to make those big plays.
No, exactly, specifically. And a lot of that too comes with watching the replays. A lot of guys just see the instant play like, oh, that's great. But sometimes the replay shows something that you don't see automatically. Like, I'll give a great example. When it's third down for a quarterback and you just see them throw the ball away, they're like, what the heck is he doing? Like, why didn't you throw it to someone? Yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But they show the different camera angle and you see the defense, all the receivers are matched up. So please watch the replays and like look specifically, and you'll notice, oh, okay, so that's what happened. Like, of course he did that, or that guy was wide open. What is this guy doing? Right. It works both ways too. Like, they don't make the great plays all the time. Like, I'll give you an example. Like Kirk Cousins, for example. You'll see like, oh, he got rid of the ball, but that guy, he was open further. Like, he could have thrown it there. Like, it just comes times with watching, seeing what's going on. And if you do have a favorite team, the best way to do this, I found, is watch an impartial game where you don't care about any team. Exactly. And you'll be able to see exactly what's going on. And you're like, okay, so they're good at this, but they suck at this. And this guy's good, but sometimes he struggles with this. And that's the best way to do it if you have a favorite team. If you're a beginner, you're lucky. You can watch any game and you can just be impartial and be like, okay, they seem good. Okay, but they struggle here. And that's how you develop what you see, and you'll notice, okay, so this player is actually really good, and you'll know the difference between good players and just flashes. Some players
flashes of greatness, flashes of just terrible play calling, or just terrible technique on the part of the players. But who's to say that Aidan Hutchinson will be that great going into the league? He just has the most. He's just shown us the most over Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's shown us the most. He's shown us that as fans that we have a lot to look forward to as soon as he is drafted into the league, because he is most definitely going to be in the top 10 as far as the draft goes.
I would say top 5.
Top 5 even. Yeah, top 5 even. Yeah, he's definitely going to be picked up very, very early in the first round.
If he doesn't go top 10, dude, I'm just going to lose my mind and say, what are these teams doing?
Yeah.
What is going on here? But
I mean, even Kayvon Thibodeaux, with the amount of exposure that he's getting and the GMs that are really starting to take a liking to him, those two are definitely going to be drafted in the top 5, if not the top 10 for sure.
Top
guaranteed.
10. Yeah.
Guaranteed the top 10.
And what's one thing I was gonna mention something else really quickly. Okay, well, oh yes, I brought up this point. So we could be wrong too. Jose can attest to this. When Josh Allen was getting first draft in the league, I hated the guy. I'm like, this is just
you did. Yes, you did.
I was like, this guy's just a project that people love. He's just tall. He can throw it deep. Like, he doesn't seem. I'm like, and
look at him now.
In my defense, the guy had a 40% completion percentage in college, and I'm just like, what? I don't get it. What's going on? And I always say, I will admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong, and that coaching. Now, like, with that development that he got, it was like a no-brainer for them back in the day. But when I saw him, like, what? Why? That's because you got to give credit to the coaching staff. Sometimes that goes into the specific parts too.
Right.
They develop someone's technique. They still got to perform it, but they can help you develop other aspects of your game. So we could be wrong too. I could be dead wrong about this one, but I just go based off what I see,
what you're seeing,
and what's going on. And obviously, we can't see into the future, but we can make educated guesses based on what's shown to us.
Yeah, any player can surprise you, and that is a good way to wrap up this episode.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for listening. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as follow our Instagram at rjtalks_11. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.